Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Pervasive Media Studio's Lunchtime Talk. The Lunchtime Talks are live every Friday at 1 o'clock here in the studio, but you can join online, so no matter if you're in Bristol or far away, you can join the conversation. My name is Emma Bolton. I'm one of the studio producers here. I'm a white woman in her mid-30s with short brown hair, an undercut, white t-shirt, and black jeans. Every Friday, we throw open the doors of the studio for Open Studio Friday, where we offer you the chance to spend time in the space by hot desking alongside our residents and staff from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. An especially big welcome to those of you who are new to the studio, maybe not been here before. Quick show of hands, are you new? Okay, we've got a couple, hello. So what is the Pervasive Media Studio? We are a diverse and collaborative community exploring creative technology with everything from comedy to coding, product development to performance art. It's a partnership between Watershed, the University of the West of England, University of Bristol, and funded by Arts Council England. We offer studio space, offering desk space, meeting rooms, events and opportunities to our residents as part of our spirit of generosity and mutual exchange. We are a space for people to take risks with embryonic ideas and make time for collaboration. A few notes of housekeeping before we begin today. Feel free to move around. If you'd like to get up and grab a glass of water or tea, there is a kitchenette just behind you here. We have a quiet space just next to this space, to my left, to your right, for anyone who needs to take a break at any point. Fire exits. They are at either end of the studio. We are not expecting a fire drill today. If the alarm goes off, the studio team will direct you. Accessible toilets and baby change can be found in the corridor just to the side of the kitchen. There is a Q&A at the end of the talk today. For those watching online, pop your questions in the chat. Lowerton will be your voice in the room today. And if you're in the room, pop your hand up and I will be going around with a microphone. Just to say, this doesn't amplify your voice. It just means that those online can hear you clearly. You can get news on all of our future talks by heading to watershed.co.uk/studio, at PM Studio UK on Twitter, at Pervasive Media Studio, at mastodon.social on Mastodon, at Pervasive Media Studio on Instagram. Our talk for today, our speaker, is V. Buckenham. V is an artist, curator, games designer, and creative technologist. She is the creator of Downpour, Cheapbots Done Quick, and has worked on titles like Beasts of Balance, Butazine, and a curator for Now Play This and Wild Rumpus. Today, they're going to be talking about their practice of making creative tools, software that helps people make things they've not made before. How can software help encourage people to think of themselves as capable? How do you keep tools alive and useful? How do you think about the scope of a problem and why you might be interested in making tools like these? So please join me in giving a warm welcome to V.
Thank you for that lovely introduction. Yes, so I'm going to be talking about making creative tools and tools that I have made. I need to turn this on if I want it to work. Hi, I'm V. This is a photo I took on the train on the way in. Not because I only had prepared my slides at that point, just to show off, I think, actually. We'll get into how I did that, how I took the photo, etc. in a moment. So how did I come to be here? Like, who am I? What's my context? So yeah, I used to be a game designer. And I worked on, this is one of the first games I worked on, like, commercially. It is an advertising marketing game for Azalea Banks, where she swims around as a mermaid underwater collecting stars, I think. True story, we sent this to her for feedback before putting it live, and she came back, having presumably played it, or maybe just watched it a bit, with one bit of feedback, which was we should make her butt bigger. So we did. I worked on Mutazione, which came out a few years ago. I worked on it much longer ago than that. It was quite long in gestation. This is like a indie game. It's a narrative adventure. You wander around, potter around, talk to villagers. It's kind of soap opera-y. So most of the stuff I did on this is no longer kind of in there. It changed a bunch. But if you walk around and you don't get stuck on invisible obstacles, that was me. I worked on a thing called Doom Piano. This is a piano that you can play Doom on. Pretty self-explanatory. I worked on a game called Beasts of Balance, which kind of combines that like indie games thing and combines that weird physical stuff. So if you look carefully here, just at this one here, you might notice that that's the same shape as this large paper sculpture there. This actually originally came out of a program at this space. Anyway, so it worked there, helped design that, helped build that, ran that as a start. We were running that as a startup for a few years, and then we got acquired by Niantic, who you might know as the creators of Pokemon Go. So I worked there for about 3 years on a bunch of stuff that I am not allowed to talk about and will almost certainly never come out. But I can show you a picture of some money instead, unrelatedly. And then I left Niantic. And I left Niantic to go do unknown. I went to go stop being a game designer. I decided to leave games behind and spurn them in favor of making tools. Not actually tools for making pottery, but I have got into making pottery, and I do enjoy how the tools that you use to make pottery are often just like, this is a usefully shaped stick. Here's a spork. Yes, I'm like, oh yes, a spork makes total sense. That is a useful thing to have. I understand this. Just a nice shape. Or in this case, a Ai Weiwei sunflower seed. I'm not sure exactly how you would use that. These aren't my tools. This is just a nice picture I found online. Anyway, no, not really that, or maybe kind of that. Instead, I'm making creative tools, which is a term I think I just made up myself. Probably other people have used it, but I don't think they use it in quite the jargony way that I do. So when I say creative tools, I mean tools, generally software. I'm still working in software. I know how that works. That let other people make things. And specifically, that let other people make creative things. And even more than that, I'm interested in stuff that lets people make stuff that they otherwise wouldn't have made and that they're not necessarily trying to make as their job. They're not necessarily a professional. Instead, it's like try something new. You're making it for the joy of creation rather than because your boss really needs you to get some stuff that you can put on social media or whatever. I mean, it's great if you can also use it for that stuff, but that's not the reason that I'm making it, and that's not the really thing that drives me. So now it is time for a little demo of Downpour, which is the creative tool that I have recently made. 1 second whilst I make my phone appear. Hey, look, my phone's appeared. Great, so we're going to make a game right here. It's not going to be very good. Just going to say that now. If anyone has any immediate prompts for a thing this game ought to be about, then please do yell out. Otherwise, I'll just do the thing I normally do.
Castle.
A castle?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Do you have a photo of a castle, any representation of it? Yeah, quickly, Google for it.
Can we have ice cream?
Ice cream? Yeah, sure. Somebody will have to look up a picture of an ice cream so I can take a photo of it, though. All right. Okay, so we have went to a castle. When we go to the castle, we then... Oh, I should explain what I'm doing here.
I have quite a few ice creams on my phone.
Oh yeah, great. Okay, so let me just explain what's happening here. So we go to a castle, and when we tap on the castle, what happens? We go to a new page. When we go to, we go to a new page. When we go to that new page, it contains a photo of some ice cream. And when we eat the ice cream, we then go to a new page which contains, do you want to do an expression of looking satisfied having eaten some ice cream? Okay, this doesn't have many choices. We could add some choices in. We could have do we want to have an alternative heritage destination? An alternative ending? Yeah, go on. Someone name an alternative heritage destination. I could just point it out the window. That might work. Look, or we can go on a boat. What happens if we go on a boat?
We'll go fishing.
Fishing. Okay, great. I'm just going to type this. I can't be bothered to look for. Fishing, and you're the representation of emotional states. So do you want to do an emotion that you would feel about fishing? Great. Okay. Okay, so we've got two choices. We can go to the castle or we can go fishing. Which do we want to do?
Castle.
Castle. Go to the castle, we eat ice cream. Happy. Go back to the start.
Ice cream versus fish.
We go fishing. We're victorious. Great. Vacation choice. Call that. Vacation choice. So give it a name. And now we push this upload button. And it is now online. Let me just quickly do. Go back to the computer. Yeah, it's now online. So you can see if you go to downpour.games/tilde/vacation choice, you can now play this game that we have made. Let me get this cursor out if someone wants to take a picture. So yeah, that's what I've made. I've made Downpour. It is a tool that you can use to make games whilst you are in the middle of a talk in, I don't know, I wasn't counting, but like, about 2 minutes or something like that, minute and a half. Yeah, let me just close this. So what have I learned from making creative tools like Downpour and some others? I have learned, first lesson I've learned is think small. By which I mean constraints are really inspiring. Like giving someone a tool that they can make anything with means you're going to have made a really complicated tool. And like those tools exist, Unity exists, these things are great. But if you give someone something where you can only do a few things, you can add pictures, you can add text, you can decorate the pictures and text, we can get into that, but you can decorate them, you can change the colors that things are, you can link them together, you can make lots of things. You can be very creative within these kind of constraints, but at the same time, it reduces stuff down. And it makes it simpler to get approachable. It means you're more able to make a UI that you can just use from your phone, use quickly, use without any previous experience or without having to watch long YouTube videos explaining how to set up a box collider so that it's attached to a rigid body so that a different rigid body can bounce into it, like to take a random example. And the thing about constraints as well is they can also spur creativity. So this is my friend Andy Wallace wrote this code here to produce this little spinning playing card. You can see the front on one side, the back on the other side, using a tool called Pico 8. So Pico 8 already has a bunch of constraints in. It has suggested kind of colors that you want to use. The thing you're making is almost certainly going to be square. It's almost certainly going to be low res. And Andy's applied an extra constraint to himself, which is to try to write the code for this in 280 characters or less. And he probably wouldn't have made this particular thing unless he was thinking about those constraints, unless he was pushing up against those constraints and deriving joy from trying to squeeze as much stuff as he can out from there. He's got a good blog post, actually, where he talks about this and tries to break down which each of these sections does. And it's like, yes, the really tricky bit was to get the A, because you're just like writing the code for generating it. So the A is like a triangle with 2 bits cut out of it, and you've got to define mathematically how that works. It's pretty interesting if that's the kind of thing you're into. Yeah, so example from Downpour is this Tic Tac Toe Simulator that Mike Cook made. So importantly for Downpour, I've explained, you can put things in, you can make choices. It doesn't have any kind of logic, any kind of internal state like that. Might add that later, but for now it does not. But this is a simulator, so we can play Tic Tac Toe. So I'm going to divide the room up into 2 groups. You are player 1, you are player 2. Player 1, where do you want to go?
Top right corner.
Top right corner. Great. People normally say the middle. When I've given the talk, everyone goes for middle, which is, I think, the suboptimal noughts and crosses strategy. So well done. All right. Player 2, where do you want to go?
Lower left.
Lower left. Like there.
I was going to say any other one that actually blocks.
No. Okay, player one, where do you want to go?
Top left.
Top left? Some satisfied expressions from the crowd there. They liked that gambit. Okay, player two.
The middle.
The middle. Middle top? Yeah, okay. Player one?
Yeah, the one who.
Player two.
No.
What? This one. You probably want to go in the middle. Yeah! Crowd intelligence there. Okay, yeah. So that is a full game of Tic Tac Toe. You will notice that at any time in that, I was able to click on any of the squares and it maintained the state and even noticed when people won. So that's quite impressive for doing in Downpour, given the lack of state. And so we get into the how did that work? And the answer is he used a computer program to generate all of the possibilities, which is about 5,500 states and about 18 megabytes of text, which I was gonna, because I'm running all of this in a browser, I was just gonna open view source in it. Turns out you can't do that because 18 megabytes of text is more than a browser can handle in view source. It just like, nope, can't display this page. I did open it in a text editor. Oops, too far. So we have, I think this is basically over 500,000 lines of text of generated states here. So you can see a wonderful choice here, straight from the playbook of Warden the Riddler Popov, which we know both of these players are familiar with. So yeah, it has all of the states. It has generated all of the different boards as images. So all of those are just there, kind of set up, not even positioned it. Yeah, which is again an example of you've been given some constraints and now you're going to do some weird stuff in order to try to overcome those constraints and try to do something weird, even though the system itself is trying to stop you. It trying to stop you is a reason that you want to work so hard. So yeah, another demo of a thing made in Downpour that kind of tries to overcome those constraints. Here we have a nice game of chess. So this one is not 2 players, it's instead you versus the AI. So yeah, let's have a game of chess. Great. So we play white, go first. Which piece do we want to move first?
The horse.
The horse. Left or right? Left. Are we going here or here? This one. Okay. What to do about that, eh? How about horse v horse? Our turn. Okay. Oh. So even if you work within the tool, you can still overcome the constraints just by patience and having a joke that you think will be quite funny to play out. I was so happy when I saw this game get made, especially because I'd seen the Tic Tac Toe one, and I was just like, oh, this is such a great follow-on from that. Anyway, yes, more lessons. People find their own use for tools. This is something I've been collecting kind of examples of this in a Twitter thread. I remember Twitter for many years now. And I guess it kind of comes to the same thing, right? Like people, users of software are smart. They try to make things work, even when the tool is not designed for it. They find their own ways to make things happen. So for example, if you are trying to clip at the back of your head, which I have done, my hair might be long now, but I have previously clipped at the back of my own head. It's quite annoying to do because it turns out it's quite hard to see the back of your own head because your eyes are on the front and you can't look backwards, your head's in the way. So you need to use a mirror, but then you need to use like 2 mirrors or maybe 3 to angle it. But what if there was a better way? What if there was a way we could use technology to make this easier? What if we could use a camera and a video mirroring out to a TV in front of us? You can solve problems however you like. You can use the things available to you to solve problems in ways that the inventors of that technology did not anticipate. Or say we were trying to figure out how we were going to build like a garage as an extension. And so we need to figure out how many bricks that is, what size it's going to be, generally do that kind of, CAD planning. And you know, maybe you don't construct very much, so you don't have this kind of software, you're not like an expert in it. It's a pain in the ass to learn all of that stuff when there's stuff you already know. Software you already know, like Excel. Why not just use Excel? That works. You know, and you can see, yeah, you've figured out kind of key things, can figure out how many bricks there are from this. Or say you've got a computer that keeps going to sleep. There's probably some settings you could change. But if you just want to keep it awake, you can use a mouse and your watch. That works fine. The second hand going around just tickles the cursor, and that keeps it awake. Yeah, so these things work. And yeah, so you can build stuff so that people can make stuff that you wouldn't anticipate out of it. And you can even design the tools that you're making for this kind of thing. And there's an important thing of all of these things, they're general purpose tools, right? A video camera can video anything. Excel, you can put any kinds of data in that you like. It doesn't care about that. It's not saying, this isn't financial modeling. How dare you? You can put whatever you like in, you can arrange it however, you can change the size of the grids, you can do visual things and numbers and text. The mouse is not designed to run on anything else, but they've thought about how can we make it so that this mouse will work on a variety of surfaces. It's not designed for, this mouse only works with this one mouse mat. A watch, cool, it's just trying to display something visually. It's not trying to lock you out there. And I guess when you're designing this kind of thing, a principle I like to think about is the principle of orthogonality. Each of these things operates in a different way, so they kind of cover more bases. Orthogonality, which, how would I actually explain this word? Sorry, you've made me realize I've used jargon. Now I feel compelled to explain it. I guess it's basically things that go in different directions, so you can compose them together into something larger, versus things that always have to run in the same direction. Yeah, so I used to be a game designer, so let's relate this back to video games. This is this is a thing from Minecraft. It is a redstone contraption. I don't know what it does, honestly. I, again, found this by searching on Google for my redstone contraption, and I found this, and I thought, that looks complicated and a good thing. But what I can tell you is that whatever it does was not designed into the game by the people who designed Minecraft. It was something that people put together by combining lots of different blocks that did different things, and that all fitted into each other, and that all could compose in various ways. They could interact with each other. They could do various things. It uses, you can see it uses redstone, the kind of electricity analog that exists within Minecraft. It also has, some things move within this space. There's a system of, objects moving within space there and following laws there. So you can make this kind of complicated thing. But when you're making it as a game, a thing you're interested in is making stuff within the own little pocket universe of the game. And obviously it's even more exciting if it can kind of connect to external tools. So in Downpour, for example, this is saying, you can combine text, and you can combine pictures, and you can combine links, and you can combine these in any way that you like. But then it's also saying, but you can also just import images in from something else. So if you've used some image editor that you like to use, you can make your images in that, import them into Downpour, and it will work with that. Downpour can export, obviously. You can see this slide. This slide was made in Downpour, so it can export and can play on the web. So you can apply the things that you'd apply to the web. You can add in extra libraries. You can change the way that it behaves in that kind of web-like way. You can hack it. You can generate the source code using external tools like that. And similarly for Minecraft. There's a whole bunch of mods that people have made for Minecraft that do various things. So this is an example where you take a 3D model and you put it through a program, and it produces Minecraft blocks in the right setup for that. So next lesson, think about the whole situation. So this is really like a cry to, when you're building a tool, you should think, about the kind of ecosystem it exists in. You should think about the constraints. You should think about what problem are people trying to solve, and what is actually the difficult part of that problem. And when I think about this, I think about a book. This is going to go in a different tangent, but it's going to come back. I think about this book, More Work for Mother, which is a brilliant, brilliant book about the invention and progress of household technologies, largely focused on America, largely focused up until the 20th century, but how these household technologies changed and how the experience of doing this kind of domestic labor changed as a result of this technology changing. And one thing that she really gets into is this idea of like, it's not just a like particular work, it's like a work system. So kind of an example of this is like, you might think, you know, it would be great if there was a labor-saving device that made cooking take less work. But the task of cooking is not just the task of cooking. You've also got to think about the whole thing surrounding that task. You know, you're not just, when you cook, you're cooking with ingredients. And where did you get the ingredients from? How much labor did it take to go acquire those ingredients? How much labor, how much technology is involved in storing these things so that they are, you know, kept tasty and, you know, safe to eat? When you finish cooking, what about washing up? What about, like washing up, cleaning up, doing all of this stuff? All of these different tasks are all connected to each other. And so if you change one part of this, it'll have knock-on impacts to this. You know, you can say, great, we can invent the microwave, and people have microwaves in their house, and a microwave is a labor-saving technology. You can cook certain types of food quicker without as much labor. But as soon as you have a microwave, you start having, cool, well now you've got particular types of ready meals, so you're now buying different things. These things will last more or less time. The types of waste that you need to get rid of are different now. Suddenly, the thing that you might have had like 200 years ago, where it's like, I live out in a homestead in America. My waste disposal system is I have a pig or I have some chickens. That doesn't work if you're getting ready meals. They won't eat the little plastic containers. So as you change one part of this and it changes the whole system, and thinking about this as a kind of holistic whole rather than as a kind of discrete task can often show you like, the problem is actually not where you thought it was actually somewhere else. 1 second. Or another example, which I, personally have a feeling about, which will come through, is self-driving cars, where it's like, wouldn't it be great to have self-driving cars? Suddenly, I wouldn't have to do this work of actually driving the car around. I could just sit here. But actually, it changes the whole system, right? You have self-driving cars, and it's like, well now, how do parking spaces work? Actually, you can just get out of the car, and the car can go drive off and park somewhere else. So suddenly, probably there's higher demand for parking spaces, and actually you'd have to go further in order to park. So suddenly the whole architecture of a city changes. Or, if you've got self-driving cars, how does it know where it's going? Suddenly it becomes incredibly crucial that you have Google Maps and that Google Maps is up to date, or else the self-driving car won't be able to navigate. So suddenly you've got this whole surveillance system that's necessary in order to change this one task. And there's a whole bunch of other stuff you could get into there, but I'll let you apply those thoughts yourself. So an example from my own work. This is a website that I made. It's called Cheap Bots Done Quick, back when Twitter was around. Remember Twitter? This was a site that let you make bots for that, make you make little automated accounts for artistic purposes. So you could write some, actually again, JSON syntax here. It would combine it to make a kind of unique tweet each time. Depends how much you wrote. But it could combine it to make a different tweet each time, and it would then post it for you automatically. There's a whole community of people making these kind of, artistic Twitter bots. It was a real kind of brilliant creative scene. That's actually where I first got to know Martin, who was at the back doing the tech and making my voice actually appear online. So I saw this brilliant kind of creative community, and I was like, I really want to make something so this is a thing of joy that more people can partake in. And so you can use this and you can make a Twitter bot. But the actual task of making the Twitter bot, actually composing it, is not even the difficult part of this. Like, sure, it helps with doing that. It uses a thing called tracery, which Kate Compton wrote, to allow you to generate some procedural text and do that. But the actual difficult part of making a Twitter bot was not the making of the Twitter bot part. It was the it was okay, well, you've made this automated account, but for this automated account to post regularly, it needs to be running as software on a computer that stays on and connected to the internet indefinitely, which most people don't have just knocking around. You've got your laptop, but it's only on sometimes. So actually what you want is you want to put it on a server, but then as soon as you put it on a server, you suddenly have to maintain a server, which is annoying, I would say. And also expensive, like you have to pay a particular cost. And some people were like, oh, this seems really exciting. I'm perfectly happy to pay $10 to $15 pounds a month in order to run the server, and I'll learn some Linux stuff in order to set up the command line and install the stuff I need, and I can fight through all of this stuff. But lots of people were also like, nah, that sounds really annoying. So what this site did was it provided the server. You put stuff in and it would run on there, and it would run reliably, it would run with lots of limitations, but it would allow you to do stuff without having to run your own server. And similarly, like the coding side of it, if you were coding a bot from scratch, the bit of creating a bit of random text to post is like actually a pretty fun and accessible kind of creative coding challenge. It's the kind of thing you might learn in kind of, I don't know, the first couple of weeks of doing some course in doing programming. It's generally a fun task. But the thing that's not as fun is learning enough about OAuth, the system that you use to set up an account with Twitter in order to connect to Twitter and post. That part is just annoying and painful. And so this is, again, Cheatbots had set up a thing with OAuth, so authenticating with it and posting on Twitter and setting up a thing like that was just, you click on the log into this site with Twitter button, give it permissions, and then it works. So yeah, so it solved the problem of letting you make a Twitter bot, but the real thing it did was not the making a Twitter bot, but actually these other problems, which were actually bigger barriers for people making their own kind of creative stuff. And I think it was successful because it helped with those problems, not necessarily because it helped with the problem that it claimed to be solving, if that makes sense. So yeah, an example of, again, think about the whole situation. So yeah, what are some other problems, other things to think about when making creative tools? Problems people face, blank page syndrome. I mean, we kind of faced this when we were making a game earlier, you know. Even though it's my talk, I was like, cool, let's make a game. What should we make a game about? And there was silence that I think is not entirely due to there's a speaker who's asking you to interact, which normally creates a little bit of a barrier. But you know, when it was a constrained choice, like which square should we click on in noughts and crosses, that was an easier choice to do. The wide open choice of anything we can make a game about, that's quite difficult to solve. So again, yeah, what you want is you want something where you start from a prompt, you start from a kind of more constrained question. That's not the only thing that the tool can make, but it's something that constrains that first choice and gives you some like the grit that the Perl can form around. It gives you something to push up against. And yeah, so this is something that Downpour tries to solve in. So when you first use Downpour, this is one of the kind of games that's already in your like library of games that you've created. You start with a few games there, and so you can just go edit it. So you open this up, it says, you decide, finish this game, what's in the egg? So you open up the egg, click on it, it starts cracking, click on it again, it cracks some more. It's also just a nice example of this is the kind of thing that you can make with this tool. You click on it again, and it opens up to reveal, don't know, what? If you get Downpour, you can open it up, you can decide, what? A goat, yeah, sure. You can decide, cool, what things should go here? And that prompt is a much easier thing to answer. And so you open it up, you make this game, you add a goat into the egg, and now you've made a complete game. There is like, you know, it works as a joke. Honestly, I think the joke works pretty much no matter what comes out of the egg. It still has the structure of a joke and still feels kind of funny, still feels kind of satisfying. I've really enjoyed it. Obviously, the stuff that gets uploaded, I can see just for moderation purposes, which means I've seen a bunch of people making these, and it always delights me. I'm always like, what have they put in the egg? What have they put in the egg? Anyway, yeah, so it gives you something, and you can make something, you can put something in the egg, and now you went from somebody who is like, ah, cool, well, let me try out this tool, to, ah, cool, I have made a game. And that's a huge thing. You make it, you upload it, cool, I've now made my first Downpour. now you're on the question of a second one, and you've already made something, so you've got some thoughts about like, oh, I want to do this thing differently, or I've got some idea here. Yeah, and there's some other games that you can riff off within Downpour that you get sampled with, but this is something that gets you started. Yeah, so again, actually going back to video games, you can see this as well, like Mario kind of starts you off with, here's something easy to start with, here's something that introduces you to some of the concepts, and then later on it can get more difficult, and you're more likely to continue with it because you've not just ran straight into a brick wall. You've not just immediately went up. Instead, you've been introduced to these concepts slowly over time. It's a similar kind of thing here. So yeah, it's important to ease people in because a big barrier that people face when using these kinds of tools is, yeah, I don't think I could do that. Which is something I've heard just pitching Downpour to people, just saying, oh yeah, I've made this thing. And then people are like, sounds complicated, or like, yeah, I don't know if I could do that. And then I'm like, no, I think you can. I understand people have probably said this to you before, and maybe it wasn't true, but I think this, maybe. So yeah, so that's, again, a big kind of barrier that stops people from engaging, and it's something you can design for. It's something you can design to try to get people over. And so one way you can do that is kind of what we've already described. You give them some early wins. You make the task initially easy. You maybe come to it with this huge dream, but you mess around with it a bit first, and you've made something, and now, well, you can do that. You've just proven that you can do that. So you've got that sense of, oh, this is possible, and now it's just a sense of, oh, I just need to push harder and go up against some larger things, make something larger, think more, so on like that. But it's easier. And another thing that makes things easier to kind of engage with in this way is just aesthetics. So here's a screenshot of the two tools that I'm kind of talking about that I've made. And you will notice that both of them are kind of pastel-y colors, which partly is just, I think pastel colors are nice. But also, it's because I think that if you reach a tool and it's in pastel colors, it immediately feels more approachable if you're not somebody who feels super technical or not somebody who feels super hardcore. You know, I don't know. It sounds kind of stupid, but I do think this is important. I think actually a thing that I definitely do feel good about is the choice. Oops. Let me just go back. Yeah, a thing that I do feel good about is the text where you're typing stuff in on cheap bots. That text, even though you're writing JSON stuff, it's not monospaced. I think people see monospace and they're like, programming, ugh. Or I don't think I can. But you put it in proportional text, and suddenly everyone's much more willing to deal with the bullshit of trying to deal with JSON and the fact that it will complain at you if you put a comma in the wrong place. Yeah, so yeah, like pastel colors and how you present it and like what the aesthetics of can really set the kind of first impression and the vibes of the thing. So yeah, so here's a kind of another example from the world of weird music tools. So this thing on the left is Orca, which is this, I guess, like esoteric programming language that can produce music. So each of the letters here is a different command, and they interact with different things in this kind of like, I don't know, grid system kind of way. They can read from their neighbors and end up producing stuff. And if you look at it, it looks like it's complicated, weird code stuff, which to be fair, it is. And the thing on the right is Imitone, which is a bit of software where you sing at it and it produces MIDI notes, and it uses some complicated algorithms to try to do that reliably. And it can like snap it to key, so you can sing at it, and it can then again feed that into a synthesizer and produce kind of cool notes. So yeah, both weird bits of music technology, but one is going, there's lots of colors and there's colorful icons, and it's trying to be approachable and friendly, and it's trying not to scare you with too much jargon stuff. And the other is like, this is a weird programming language and you should feel like a hacker when you're using it. And the thing as well is that, you know, I kind of presented this like, one is good and one is bad, but also I don't think this is entirely true. Like, personally, I like to mess around with music stuff. I consider myself a programmer, and I don't necessarily have great confidence in my like singing voice or like ability to spontaneously musically riff off stuff. So when I think about these two tools, Imitone feels way more intimidating for me to engage with, actually. Like Imitone, I have to sing to my computer. That sounds embarrassing. What if someone hears? Whereas like, oh, a weirdo programming language, cool, I can mess around with that. I can figure out some of that stuff. Feeling like a hacker, I enjoy that. So, you know, the aesthetics kind of match you up against an intended audience. It's the kind of like, what kinds of person would be into this, and how do you get it set up so that that kinds of person that you're trying to appeal to is actually going to see the thing and go, oh yeah, cool, yeah, I can mess around with this, see what happens. Yeah, next lesson, be a cockroach. And when I say be a cockroach, I'm referring to their, I don't know, like I was going to say, ability to survive a nuclear winter, but I don't know, no one's really had a nuclear winter, I don't know if they do survive, but that's the metaphor we're going with here. So survival, and like thinking about how can you build something that can survive. If you're building a tool, if you've built this kind of complicated, difficult thing like this, you probably want it to stick around for a while. Maybe you don't, maybe it's just a thing, it's an experiment, that's fine, that's kind of nice as well. But for me, I like to have the kind of impact on a larger system, and part of that is sticking around. So thinking about this as a design goal and thinking about this as something that you can work to, yeah, is a design thing you can kind of work towards. So some examples in a second. So yeah, so some examples are, if you can make something so that it doesn't have a server, then it's much less likely to break, because as we established before, maintaining a server is quite annoying and it will break and then you have to fix it or else the thing goes down. So if you can make something that just runs standalone on your computer, great, it will survive longer. If it exists just as a file, just put that file somewhere where it doesn't have wrappers or anything like that. If you've put it on like the App Store or the Play Store or something, just like put an APK online somewhere where it can get archived by somebody, so that in the future when you've stopped maintaining its store listing, someone can just download that APK and figure out a way to get it to work. If you're, maybe consider being open source. If you're, like Cheatbots was put up open sourced, it was not put up open sourced in a way where I'm like, ah yes, I really want this to have a whole community around it and I want to deal with community contributions. Instead it was like a, might as well, this is not a commercial project, it is a thing that exists on one server, so it might as well be open source, there is no harm to it, and maybe something nice will happen. And as we know, Twitter took down all the bots and made a general series of decisions that personally I would not have made. But other things exist, like Mastodon. And in fact, at one point I got an email from somebody who said, hey, I've taken the Cheatbot source code and I've ported it to Mastodon and I'm about to launch it, is that okay? And I said, great, I love this. So yeah, Cheatbots may no longer work, it may no longer exist, but it still does exist. It exists for Mastodon, it's called Cheatbots Toot Suite, an even more arcane reference layered into the needlessly arcane name that it already had. But it still exists, and part of that is because I'd open sourced it at one point so somebody could rip it and take it and make a new version of it for something else. So it's kind of survived through this kind of stuff. Yeah, and there's also just stuff you can do in terms of choosing boring technology, which is more likely to last. If you're using a technology that was around 10 years ago, it's generally more likely to be around 10 years from now than something that was invented 6 weeks ago. You might get lucky or unlucky, either way. Anyway, yes, be a cockroach, but also have fun. If you're making creative tools, you're making something that people are going to use out of a sense of joy. And if you want to give them that sense of joy, a way to do that is for it to feel like it's something that comes from a person and it comes from a place of joy. Example of this that's not from a tool that I've made, but is, this is an example from a tool I've made. So inspiration for Downpour comes from trying to make it accessible and approachable, and it also comes from this pencil case, which, did anyone here have this pencil case when they were younger, or pencil case like it? Does anyone recognize this?
I had something similar.
Okay, yeah. I don't think I ever had it, but I remember like people in my class had, and I was just like thought a lot about these particular pencil cases. Like they just like have like lots of slots. You can push a button and it like pops open, and there's like a secret compartment which has a secret compartment which has a calculator and a secret bit that pops up where you've got the pencil sharpener. And generally this like aesthetic of lots of like plasticky, clicky buttons, and you can kind of see how that then translates across to Downpour's design and the kind of way that panels slide up and down, and it has that kind of clicky, plasticky look. Honestly, wanted to get more of that like plasticky texture into it, but it turned out to be annoying to do with the software I was using. So yeah, that's a kind of inspiration from then. But yeah, as I said, a better example of this is Electric Zine Maker, made by Nathalie Lawhead, which is just so bursting with like creativity and joy, with the way that she's honestly just worked very hard on the UI for this. Like, this is a drawing interface, and why shouldn't it have drippy icons, and why shouldn't the delete thing have a broom in front of it, and the smudge be that, and all of the panels be like slight wonky rectangles rather than straight rectangles. Like, having this presentation means that when you're using it, the context you've got is more joyful than it would be otherwise. Some other screenshots from this. Why shouldn't there be a potato saying, "Zines are pretty great, hope this tool helps"? You know, a potato is encouraging you. I don't see how that could be a bad thing. You know, the buttons and the joy of this means that you feel like you're doing a creative thing. It feels playful rather than just like, cool, here is productivity tool. I am doing this task easier. You know, the smoosh zone. Call it welcome to the smoosh zone. That's going to make people excited every time they open up that panel. They want to go to the smoosh zone. They don't just want to apply the smudge filter. You know, smoosh settings. Smoosh the smoosh. Yes. Smooth. Yes. This brings me joy, and I think the joy it comes from that sense that Nathalie wanted to make something joyful and wanted to make something weird and has expressed herself in this way, rather than this is the optimal way to accomplish this task, you know? Yeah, so we come towards the last bit of the talk, the like inspirational bit where I say, yes, and you should make tools like this too. But, you know, honestly, I mean, if you want to, you don't have to. I like making creative tools because I care about the kind of wider context of how things are made, and I care about people doing this kind of creative, joyful making. I come from the indie games community, and I really remember when I first got involved, it was this sense of being in a scene where people were doing new things, and yeah, new explorations were happening, and it felt really exciting to be part of that, and felt really exciting to see stuff like that happening and wonder what new things people were going to do, and that sense of possibility. Like, that was really exciting to me. And I want to help that to happen again, and I want to encourage people to do that, and I want people to feel that. And personally, you know, I am a programmer, and I care about user interfaces, as you can see, and I, you know, I'm capable of working on my own for a period of time. So building stuff like Downpour, building stuff like Cheapbots Done Quick fits in with my kind of skill set. But if you do care about those same aims, then there's lots of things you can do, you know? Putting on events like this, bringing a community together also helps doing that. Like helping people apply for funding, or curating a show, or just playing and talking about a thing, doing criticism, making something that then inspires other people. All of these things can also help build towards this kind of creative community, this kind of vibrant creativity of other people. So you can do that stuff if you want, or you can make creative tools. But for me, yeah, I think about specifically, there's a tool called Twine, which is again a kind of hypertext thing, and it came out, and it's like a weird hack on a like personal wiki tool where you can like, here's the thing, I think this is maybe useful for making these kind of interactive text stories, and it created this whole wave of people making this really cool, usually kind of queer stories that you didn't see before, because making them, they were not commercial, they were too personal and weird for them to be something that would fit into the mainstream games industry, but suddenly there was a tool that made them easier to make, and suddenly you had this whole wave of people making stuff and inspiring each other, and then a bunch of this stuff kind of felt like it bled into the larger kind of more commercial games industry and the effect that had. And I just think about like, this tool was kind of simple, but the effect it had and the kind of creativity and the cool stuff that came out of it is so huge. And for me, I'm just like, that's amazing. And if I can make something like that happen again, amazing. If I can make 1/10 of that happen again, I'm going to be happy. So for me, that's why I make tools. But for you, do what you like. Oh, and the good thing about making creative tools rather than this other stuff, way less emails. That's my talk.
Right, so we have a little bit of time for Q&A. So, anyone got any questions? I'm also, okay, right. Let me just run over here.
Thank you. Yeah, I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great. I guess what comes to my mind with regards to accessibility predominantly in tech spaces, I find also with AI becoming such a prominent tool within our day-to-days, it's not going anywhere. I find, how do you find that integration, particularly where like, so for instance, for myself, I taught myself how to code, I couldn't afford university, typical kind of structures, to now where I don't bother coding anymore. I'm actually more in the process of focusing on no-code AI alternatives. But then that also takes away the aspect of like collaborating with people, and an app that would have took me months to make and thousands, I make it in the space of £5. You know, so how do you feel about that aspect of creating tools, but also the accessibility and the interaction that comes with it all?
I think it's good when I don't know. I feel it's good when stuff is accessible. I feel it's good when that kind of stuff is there. I feel conflicted about AI in a bunch of ways, and I think Downpour kind of deliberately doesn't take a stance on that, and it's just like, cool, if you've made an image, if you've made text, you can paste it in. You can get this from kind of any source, and you can incorporate it in here, but it's not necessarily built in already, and that feels like a good place for me to be in from that perspective. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. But if there's stuff that enables people to make stuff that they weren't making anyway, just sounds like you found, then that sounds great.
Right, we've got a question online. Louder?
So Not Invented Here asks, I was a big fan of cheap bots done quick. Did anyone use that in unexpected or unintended ways?
Firstly, thank you. Secondly, the story that comes to mind is actually generally a story about like moderation, and I guess how difficult moderation is. But at one point, I was looking through the bots that people have uploaded, and it was a bot that basically just like tagged another user and just said, another user is gay, you know, another user, whatever, like, and just did that. And like, I saw that, and like the way I kind of passed it, and I was like, is this like some like school kid bullying kind of situation going on? So then I dug in and looked at the account and like searched for like mentions of the account, and eventually managed to figure out that it was in fact actually that person who just like, I want to make a bot that reminds me that I'm gay and expresses my queerness in this way. And I was like, oh, okay, actually this is a different context than I thought. Great. I love that. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people used cheap bots for a lot of stuff. There was like 50,000 bots on there by the end. So yeah, a ton of different stuff going in a ton of different ways.
Right. Any other questions? Kind of. I was. You kind of looked like you were thinking about it.
I was going to say, just which one of the cheap bots done quick was your particular favourite? Was there any standouts?
I don't know. I can give a definitive answer, but the first thing that popped into my head was a bot that someone made that just drew little desert landscapes. Just really beautiful. Yeah, or like one that my friend Emma made, which was just like emoji gallery. I'm pretty sure it was Emma's. Emoji gallery, which was just like these little rooms done as emojis, and they're like painting emojis in there, and then like random figures at the bottom. Just like stuff where it's like, oh, you've got a sense of like a little world or a sense of a little scene, and it creates that sense of a scene in itself. Yeah, love that.
So I was going to say there was a few standouts for me that I remember that somehow at various points became like the most popular accounts of like the week. You know, there's all the viral ones. There was the dictionary one that did a different word every day, and as it count down to certain like just swear words and things like that, there was all of a sudden it was the top of trending for a while.
Right, yeah.
That would go, we know it's tomorrow, and I was just
Like Alison Parrish's Every Word, is that right?
yeah, I think that was one of them, and
yeah.
there was an immense amount of imitations.
Which had a brilliant thing where it got to the end of the alphabet, and the lexicographic sorting it did put E's with an accent after Z. So everyone was like, "Oh, it's done xylophone. Oh, what a shame, it's over." And then it kept on going, and everyone was like, "What the fuck?" Great moment. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some really useful tool examples, just being like the date ones, but then those are my absolute favourites. The ones that were just, they seemed completely mundane. Just the ones that were reminding you it's Wednesday today, and then every other day it just says it's not Wednesday, and then completely no reactions. Then one with millions of likes, just because that one made it into the algorithm for some reason. But yeah, I just loved the bot. It was
Yeah. And like, there was something really magical about bots in that kind of way, because like they were this kind of like, you know, generative art in this kind of way, but it was something you kind of lived with. You like followed it, and you just see it, reminders of it, or you'd see it in a particular context, and like just the way that it like wove into your everyday life felt very special to me. Yeah.
Look, any other questions? If not, I do have a couple. I'm just going to crack on then.
Yeah.
So you've been working on Downpour for a while. Just how big is the library, I suppose, for the Downpour games at the minute?
Oh, good question. I've not checked. I would say hundreds of games. That sounds about right. Yeah.
Because I've seen occasionally that you will sort of like post online some of the highlights of ones that you've seen just kind of coming into.
Yeah. Well, I've got it set up for moderation reasons. Basically, whenever someone puts a game onto the back end, it gets posted in a little Discord server that just I'm in. So I then just go in there and read my unread messages, which was all the new games that got uploaded. And when one looks interesting, I'll obviously play through it and then go, oh shit, yeah, you should check this out. Yeah, the most recent good one was a game called Art Kissing, where you go into a gallery and you're like, which one of these paintings wants a kiss? And play it and you can find out which painting you want to kiss and which painting wants to kiss you.
Generally interested to see the choices that people go, oh yeah, that one is more kissable than that one. How can people find Downpour?
If you search in the App Store for Downpour, you'll see it, or you can go to downpour.games.
Lovely.
Let me bring that up. That's a good thing to have up whilst we're doing some more.
Whilst we're
questions.
here, yeah. I think let's.
I mean, you can't see the URL. That's what the website looks like.
We can put the URL somewhere, I suppose. Any other questions? No? Oh, yeah.
Are there any additional features such as animations or things that you'd want to add if you had the resources?
Yeah, like a ton of stuff that I want to add. I mean, I think the next thing I really want to add is the ability to have comments within Downpours, so you can add a little block in there that allows people to, basically it's a guest book. I want people to be able to add guest books to their games. So you've got the ability to have like, but the thing that feels really nice to that is like, you can like have a game where it's like, you've hit this ending, and now here's the comment section of people who found the same ending as you know?
Is there a games browser?
There is, so in the app there's featured games that you can see. I've not put that as a thing that's on a website yet, but also when I get around to that. And
last one for me is, have you or are you considering doing like a mini games jam sort of thing to encourage more high effort?
Actually, there's a concept for that I've not got around to doing. I was kind of thinking about if we made a thing called like, I guess I was thinking about it as like the Portal Jam, where it starts, you go through a door and you go through to somebody's random game where you've just went through a door and you explore a room, and then you go through a door again, and then you go to someone else's random room, and someone like that.
Great. Well, I kind of feel this is a little place to wrap it up. If everyone would like to join me in thanking V again for their talk today. Right, so before you go, if you want to stick around in Hot Desk today or find out more about the studio, you can come and find any of the studio team. So studio team, quick quiz. It's mostly me and Loughton and Martin at the back at the minute. If you're watching online and you have any questions or like to find out more, drop us a line at studio@watershed.co.uk. But thank you for joining us and enjoy the rest of your Friday, and we will see you same time next week. Thank you.